ever get that feeling, that feeling where some horror films just really stick with you, like way after the credits have rolled? That's Hereditary for you.
Yeah.
It's not really about those jump scares.
Right.
It's more about the horror that's kind of like simmering beneath the surface.
Right.
We're talking about family falling apart, all that creepy stuff.
Yeah.
And we're diving into a really insightful analysis today.
Okay.
Let me tell you, it really gets under your skin, this film.
Okay.
You ready to explore the dark side, family secrets, inherited trauma, all that good stuff?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the film opens with a funeral, right?
Yeah.
Pretty standard for a horror movie.
Classic.
But there's something that feels just a little bit off from the get-go, especially with the other mourners there. Our analysis points out that these aren't just eccentric relatives, how some families are.
Right, right.
It's something far more sinister,
Oh.
a cult.
Wow, so right off the bat, we're dealing with a cult. Interesting. Well, the director, Ari Aster, he's known for this. He uses these seemingly normal settings like a funeral and kind of twists them. Right from the beginning, he plants that seed of doubt, that unease, making you feel like something's not quite right. And the thing is, he never lets go of that feeling. It just hangs over the entire film.
It really makes you wonder, are we ever truly in control? Or are we just puppets in this big cosmic play?
It's a question that haunts the entire film, for sure.
Okay, so speaking of things beyond our control, Annie's eulogy for her mother, Ellen. She describes her as being secretive, controlling. On the surface, sounds like typical family drama, right?
Right.
But our analysis suggests there's something much darker at play.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
So it turns out Ellen wasn't just a difficult mom. She was a high-ranking member of this cult. And this cult, they worship Paimon.
Paimon. Now, for our listeners who aren't familiar, who's Paimon?
Yeah, so Paimon is the demon, like ancient demon. And he wants a human body to inhabit.
Plus, we're talking possession.
Yo, yeah.
Classic horror trope, but always effective.
And their goal is to bring him into our world, to possess someone.
Okay, now that's a family secret I wouldn't want to uncover.
Right.
It makes those awkward family gatherings seem like a walk in the park.
Totally. And speaking of family, the Grahams,
Yeah.
they are like the poster family for dysfunction.
Oh, really? In what way?
So you've got Annie, right? She channels her grief through these super detailed miniatures.
Interesting.
Then there's Steve, her husband. He seems more concerned with keeping the peace.
Right.
Than actually dealing with their problems.
Avoiding conflict. Classic Steve.
Exactly.
But those miniatures, they're more than just a hobby, wouldn't you say? They're like a window into Annie's mental state.
Oh, absolutely.
A reflection of her need for control, especially as things around her are spinning out of control.
And it's disturbing because she recreates these scenes from her life.
Oh, wow.
Including, and this is the messed up part, the car accident that really messed up her son, Peter.
So we're layering the trauma here.
Yeah. And that brings us to Peter, the son. Teenage kid, obviously. There's some serious baggage there.
Yeah.
And then there's Charlie.
She's the youngest. She's isolated, strange habits, and there's this eerie presence about her.
See, this is what Hereditary does so well. It's not about the cheap scares. It's the atmosphere, that feeling that something is deeply, deeply wrong. And Aster builds that so masterfully through the characters, their relationships, making you feel like you're caught in a web of dread.
It's like watching a car crash in slow motion.
Exactly.
You know it's gonna happen, but you can't look away.
And you're powerless to stop it.
And then it happens. That pivotal moment where everything changes. Charlie's death, it's brutal, chaotic, and it signals that there's no going back for the Graham family.
It's not just about the fact that she dies, though, right? It's how she dies. That's what's really significant.
So symbolic, right? Yeah, the decapitation. That's a motif that runs throughout the film. And it represents a loss of control, severing of the self. It's like from that moment on, something else is in control. The family's fate is sealed.
I gotta say, that image of Charlie, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's like the moment when things really start to go downhill for the family.
Definitely. And the way the film shifts from that horror to Annie's grief, it's powerful.
It's intense.
She pours everything into her art, those miniatures, but they become even more disturbing. It's not just grief she's dealing with, it's this overwhelming guilt.
That's what gets me about Hereditary. It's not just a horror movie, it's like emotionally heavy.
Right.
Like you're watching a real family just crumble.
Exactly.
And then Joan shows up.
Right.
She seems like she's there to help Annie, to guide her.
Support system, yeah.
Yeah. She even suggests a seance, to connect with Charlie.
Okay.
But looking back, there were those little things like red flags about Joan.
Oh, interesting. Like what do you see?
Like she was a little too eager to get involved.
See, that's Ari Aster for you. He plays with our perceptions of trust. Especially when someone is vulnerable like Annie, he makes you question everyone's motives.
Woo. So they weren't even really talking to Charlie. It was all like the cult's plan.
The seance wasn't about closure, it was another step in summoning Paimon. What's really unsettling is realizing the cult was always in control, manipulating these events.
So messed up. So we have this family, already a wreck, and they're being manipulated by this outside force. And just when you think it can't get any worse, Annie finds her mother's, secret stash.
Oh no!
Cult stuff, books, symbols, photos, you name it.
That discovery changes everything. It connects all the dots, revealing how deeply the cult has infiltrated this family for generations. Imagine that, your whole family history, manipulated by something you never even knew existed.
It's like how much of our lives are really our choices,
Right.
And how much is already decided.
Yeah, it's a terrifying thought.
And it's not just Annie being affected. Peter, he's drowning in guilt over Charlie. He starts having these terrifying experiences.
Yeah.
Nightmares, hallucinations.
It's interesting because the film doesn't make it easy to tell what's real and what's not.
Right.
Is Peter cracking under the pressure, or is something darker happening?
Is it all in his head, or is it, supernatural?
Exactly, and that's what makes Hereditary so effective, right? It messes with your mind. You're never quite sure if what you're seeing is real or if it's just Peter's sanity unraveling.
The movie wants us to question, what's scarier, the monsters we create in our own heads or the ones that are out there lurking in the shadows.
Yeah, it's a question that lingers long after the film is over.
And as Peter's going through this terrifying transformation, Annie, she's totally losing it.
And the way the film portrays Annie's descent into madness, it's just raw. It gets under your skin.
Those practical effects, though, the body contortions, super creepy.
They add a level of realism that you just don't get with CGI. It's almost like the horror is escaping the screen,
Totally. It's visceral.
Yeah.
And that scene with Annie in the ceiling, so disturbing.
Absolutely. That scene is pure nightmare fuel. It taps into that primal fear, losing control of your own body.
Okay, so we're barreling towards this climax. Peter, terrified and alone, he becomes the target, right, of the cult's plan. That scene in the classroom, when his body contorts, it's like foreshadowing what's to come.
Right, and it highlights why Peter is such a tragic character. He's a pawn in this game he never even knew he was playing. The analysis really digs into this idea that Paimon needs a male host. And Peter, vulnerable, consumed by guilt, he's the perfect vessel.
Which leads us to the treehouse. That's where it all goes down.
It's not an accident that the climax takes place in the treehouse. It starts as a symbol of innocence, right? Childhood, play. But by the end, it's been corrupted, just like the family. And that final shot, Charlie, crowned in the treehouse, chillin'.
It's like this reminder that sometimes evil wins. Hereditary. It stays with you. It's a masterclass in psychological horror. Gets under your skin, makes you think. Family secrets, trauma, the idea that we might not be in control of our own lives.
Exactly. It makes you question everything. Your family, your past, even your own sanity.
Hereditary. If you're brave enough to watch it, you might want to leave the lights on.